Hey everybody and welcome. Today we're working on the essay writing portion of the writing section for the SAT. A lot of people get really freaked out about the essay writing portion because they think it's got to be the hardest because you have to write stuff down and you're not just picking from multiple choice. And it can be pretty difficult, but I'm here to reassure you. A couple of reasons. One, the essay writing portion actually isn't weighted nearly as heavily as the multiple choice. Now it seems a little weird. The section's called writing, right? So you'd expect your own writing would be worth a lot more. But it's not. And that's because these essay graders know that this is a subjective issue. It's a little bit subjective how good an essay is. And they can't always rely on their grades as being a perfect determiner of how well you write. Two, you can learn to do this. This is not an essay that you're writing for your English class. And let's think about how it differs from an essay you would write in English class. In English class, your teacher cares about the quality of your ideas, the depth of your insight, and the extent of your creativity. The SAT writers don't care about that. They don't know you. They don't know where you're coming from. They don't know what your other essays look like. Really, they just want to know, can you write a structured, organized essay with as few as possible grammar mistakes that gets across a clear idea and that uses maybe a little bit of high-level vocab and complex sentence structure. Another thing that they don't care about is what it looks like in relation to your other essays. So your English teacher knows what you wrote last week. She knows what you're going to write next week. These essay writers don't know that. So in other words, when you're practicing writing this essay, your goal should be to do the same thing every time. In other words, originality, variation, creativity are worth 0 points. They're worth 0 points on the SAT writing essay. So it's very important if you feel like, oh, I wrote this last time. It doesn't matter. Write it again. Do the exact same thing every time. The benefit of this is that you'll go faster and you'll make fewer mistakes. So let's talk for a minute about what's prioritized on the essay, what they're looking for. Now, they'll tell you, the SAT will tell you, that what it's looking for is a cogent argument, a logical flow, organization, good use of sentence structures, complex sentence structures and vocabulary, lack of grammar mistakes, and basically an argument that starts, ends, and has a middle. So you're using examples to support, and the example should be appropriate. And those are certainly all the things that are tested. But what they're not telling you is that there are a few things that are tested that give you a much better chance of getting a higher score, that are much better, much more closely related to how well you do than to all those things. And guess what the number one thing that they care about is? The number one thing that determines your score on the essay writing is length. The number one thing that determines your score on the essay writing is how long your essay is. So does that mean you can just write a bunch of nonsense and fill up 3 pages? No, obviously not. Obviously, if you just write gobbledygook, it's not going to be worth anything. It does mean that you can learn to do the same thing over and over again so you can do it more quickly, so you can fill up the page in much less time. And it also means that your examples don't have to be perfect. Your sentences don't always have to be absolutely perfect. It doesn't have to make the greatest sense in the world. Be much more concerned about getting started and getting underway than you are about the actual content of your essay. So number one thing is length. Second is organization. So what are they looking for in terms of organization? They're looking for at least 3 paragraphs. You want at least 3 paragraphs. You want an introduction, you want a middle paragraph, and you want a conclusion. But that's a minimum. So people write at different speeds. If that's what you got in you, okay. You want to have that structure. You want to have 3 paragraphs. And the introduction and conclusion, if you're using 3 paragraphs, they should be shorter probably so that your most of your essay is in your middle. Ideally, you would have 2 or even 3 body paragraphs for a total of 4 or 5 paragraphs. But people are going to be working at different speeds, so we're going to approach the essay writing with the idea that you maybe will write 1, maybe write 2, or maybe write 3. The body paragraph, regardless of how many you write, should be the same every time. Same thing with the introduction, and same thing with the conclusion. But you want to have it organized. Third thing that they're checking, did you take a side? Do you have a clear argument? So you've seen these prompts before. You all know what they sound like. It's basically a yes or no question. Should technology be used to teach children, or should children be used with just books and regular things? It's always a yes or no. Pick a side. They're not interested in hearing you say, well, it's kind of A and it's kind of B. It's a mix. That's not interesting to them. What they want is for you to take a side. And do they care what side you take? They do not. All you need to do is take a side and support it. It doesn't matter what you really think. People spend a lot of times like obsessing about what the best idea is and like how to get across and what approach they should take. That's great for your English class. It's not good for the SAT. For the SAT, you want to be mechanical. You want to jump right in. You want to start writing your essay right away based on a format that we're going to go over today. Okay, so let's take a look at that format. So we have a real basic outline. So first part of the outline is obviously the introduction. So I'm just going to put in some bullets here so we can talk about how this works. And I'll be typing today. You are obviously going to be writing your essay in pencil, and you're going to be, 25 minutes. It's not a lot of time. So your essay is not going to look as neat. It's not going to look as structured, and that's okay. Everybody understands that. You're not graded on handwriting, but you want it to be legible. And I'll be typing these today, so, kind of bear with me. Hopefully it'll show up on the screen, and you can see everything that's going on. All right, so the introduction. Now, again, people are writing at different speeds, right? So the question is, how many sentences go in the introduction? Probably 3, if you can get it. If not, 2. So let's see. First sentence in the introduction. What you want to do is repeat the idea in a different way. Repeat the idea in a different way that doesn't choose a side. And we'll put a prompt up here and talk about exactly what we mean here, but you want to paraphrase. And you want to include both sides. Second sentence. Second sentence is where you want to show the essay writer that you've understood this idea. And in a minute here, I'm going to show you an example of what's happening here, what we're doing. But so just now, bear with me, understand, you'll see what this means in just a second. But the second sentence is you want to demonstrate to the essay reader that you understand both sides of this situation. That you understand how one person could think A, but how you really think B. So this is also going to be the first introduction of your thesis. And we're going to introduce a thesis with a contrast. I know you're wondering what I'm talking about right now. You're going to see it in just a second, so hold on. Now the third sentence of your introduction is simply going to be a restatement of your thesis, including the list of examples that you're going to use. So remember, we're always going to be using examples. We'll talk about that when we talk about the body paragraph. But you're always using examples for your essays, so you're just going to restate thesis with the examples. And we'll talk about how to do that. Okay, so this is my introduction. 3 sentences. You can write more if you want. You can get flowery with your language if you know how to do that. We're not learning that today. This is if you're a good writer and you can do that on your own, that's great. I've seen students do that. I've seen them take this idea and run with it. This is your basic. This is your crux, your format. You don't want to spend a lot of time on your intro. You really don't want to spend a lot of time on everything. You want to be writing as much as you can that makes sense, that works as fast as you can. Okay, let's take a look how this works in action. We're going to write a little quick introduction. All right, so we're going to take a prompt here. I'm going to write down the prompt for you, and I just opened this book. The blue book is one of your essays, and we're going to take a look. This is a real SAT essay on how it would work. So I'm going to have to up the font here, it looks like, to 26, so that you guys can see it, or 24. Here's the prompt. Do you think that ease does not challenge and that, whoops, and again, I know I have an advantage because I'm typing, right? And that we need adversity to help us discover who we are. Okay, so this is our prompt. And remember, when you get this prompt, what they do a lot of times is they'll give you this quote. They do it every time. They give you a quote. They give you some big thing that you need to talk about. Only reason to ever look at the quote is if you don't understand the prompt. If you have no idea what they're talking about, go back and read the quote, see if you can figure it out. But understanding the prompt is key. If you don't understand it, look at the quote. If you do understand it, don't waste your time. If you understand what this means and you can address it, then go ahead and address it and start working on it. So I'm not even going to worry about the quote right now. Just one other thing when we're talking about the quote. If you do read the quote, and that's okay, if you have time and you want to kind of get the context, go ahead and read the quote. don't refer to it in your essay unless you're more specific. So don't simply in your essay say, this quote means, because assume nobody who knows what you're writing actually read this quote. Assume that they're reading this essay and they just found it on the street and they have no idea what it's supposed to be about. They don't know what the quote is. So if you're going to refer to the quote, be specific. Say who said it, say what they said. I actually suggest you don't refer to the quote. I suggest that you stick with the prompt and you answer it on your own terms based on your understanding of it. It's what the essay writers want. They want your demonstration that you understand what's going on. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in and start writing this essay based on our outline.